Well, hey, what's up? My name is Shanna, and welcome to week 3 of How to See God. Throughout this series, we've been talking about ways that you can see God at work in your own life, other people, in the world around you. And yes, you can see God. Maybe not like literally, but you can see the evidence of God all around you if you pay attention. Paying attention is not always easy. There are plenty of distractions around us all the time. I remember when I was in middle school and I was sitting in math class. All of my friends sat around me, which was super fun, except for the part where I actually had to know how to do math. My teacher always called out on me not to answer the question, but to say, Shanna, can you stop talking? And of course, I would turn red and say, of course, I can do that. But when it came time for the test, I had no idea how to actually do the math. So I'm guessing you've had a somewhat similar experience, even if it wasn't math. Even if we know that slowing down, taking a minute, and focusing our attention on what is in front of us can be super helpful, the reality is in today's world, this isn't always easy. We have everything from phones, our friends, our family, the schoolwork that we have to get done, the clubs that we're a part of, the teams that we want to join, our social media accounts, video games that we want to play, and of course, just anything, quite literally anything on the internet. All of it is competing for our attention all the time, and with so much coming at us, it's tough to make sense of what we're actually giving our attention to on a daily basis. Even if we know how important our attention is, few of us actually slow down enough to really be intentional about where we're putting our focus throughout each day. So let's take a second to do that right now. I've made a list. Well, I've made some sticky notes of different things that are typical distractions for us. And I'm gonna go through them, and what I want you to do is to pick the top 3 for you that typically end up being the most distracting. Let's see what we've got here. First of all, the smell of food. Have you ever smelled a pizza box being carried through a hallway and your first instinct is to go, I want one? Super distracting, right? Conversations that you're not in, that are happening next to you that you really want to hear what they're about. That's pretty distracting for me. There's also a cute person in class. Hello, you stare at the back of their head and their back of their head looks really beautiful in math class. And are you listening to any of the equations that your teacher is talking about? No. Your favorite show, you're thinking about it, it kept you up all night because you were so invested in what was happening, and now it's all you can think about. Nothing else matters except for the next episode. The phone alerts. Hello, ESPN is going off. Hello, TikTok is going off. Hello, your game is letting you know that your life is renewed and you have to go back and play. It's all pretty distracting. Your group chat. All of your friends are talking and you need to be a part of it, and you need to do it right now. And bugs? Hello, have you ever had a bug fly on you? That's the most distracting thing in the world. Nothing else matters other than getting the bug off of you. Okay, so those were just a few options of the things that can take our attention. And I'm curious, what were the most distracting for you? Maybe take a moment, look at the people next to you, and share what your top 2 or 3 were. Okay, great. Now that we've talked about it a little bit, let's jump back in. Now, some of us find it more difficult to maintain focus than others, but the truth is distractions exist for all of us. We just saw that. But like we mentioned earlier, we're trying to find ways to see God at work in our everyday lives. We want to leave room to do that. So the question is, with so many things competing for our attention, how do we make room to give more of our focus to God? The advice we're going to look at today was written a long time ago to people in a very different world than the one that we live in today. There was no phones, no social media, no streaming platforms, nothing like that at all in the digital space. And because of that, you might think that they had an easier time focusing their attention on God. But the truth is, humans are humans in any point in history. And that means we all have a hard time staying focused on what matters most at times. And Peter, one of Jesus' closest friends and followers, wrote a letter that we now know as 1 Peter. And in that letter, he gave a lot of advice about what it means to follow Jesus in our everyday life. The people he was writing to were often being persecuted or excluded by their communities simply because they followed Jesus. So it's safe to say that their attention was probably pulled in all kinds of different places because of feelings like anxiety and fear, social pressure, or even just survival had their focus on a regular basis, and for good reason. So can we fully relate to their situation? For most of us, the answer is most likely no. But let me just say this, if you are facing some serious situations in your life, don't feel bad that you're distracted. God cares about you, and he wants to make sure that you're safe and that you're healthy. And you might want to talk to a trusted adult who can help you figure out your next steps. But even though we may not be facing the same realities as the people that Peter was talking to, there are other ways that we may see our focus shift and our attention spread thin. So with that in mind, let's check out what Peter wrote. Discipline yourselves. Keep alert. Like a roaring lion, your adversary, the devil, prowls around looking for someone to devour. Okay, that was a lot, right? A lion? An enemy? The devil? How does this verse tell us anything about giving God our attention? Okay, let's break it down and we'll find out. Peter told early followers of Jesus to discipline themselves and to keep alert. Sure, they were facing different circumstances that could distract them from paying attention to God, but they needed the same thing that we all do to shift our focus: discipline. It's so easy for us to get distracted from the things that matter most in life, like seeing God at work in us and the world around us. And because of that, we have to work on building the discipline necessary to shift our focus. And that's one way that you can work on seeing God every day, by developing discipline that helps us put our attention on God, no matter what's happening around us. And you can think of developing that discipline by wondering, what are the things that we can do to help us grow in our faith? The things that help us spend time with God. We can be people who slow down enough, as much as is within our control, to see God in the world around us. We can be people who are aware of the things that distract us. We can be people who build the habit of shifting our focus back to what's good for us when we need to. And all that starts with some discipline, or self-control, to give us a better chance to find focus. What happens if we don't go this route, though? If we stop being aware of what has our focus? If we don't develop discipline around what has our attention? Well, let's look back at what Peter said. We run the risk of being devoured. That feels dramatic. Yeah, but the point is still the same. If we're not intentional about what has our attention, we run the risk of being distracted by the things that aren't helpful or healthy for us. See, the work of the adversary or enemy mentioned by Peter is often to distract us from giving God our full attention. So if we want to see God at work in our everyday lives, if we want to build discipline in the area of looking for God around us, if we want to give more of our attention to the things of God in ourselves and others in the world around us, we have to start here. Pay attention to what has your attention. Paying attention to what has our attention can help us redirect how we are spending our time, our energy, and attention when needed. It can help us build the discipline to focus on the things of God. It can help us to stay alert to what might try to devour our focus and connection to God. It can clear space in our hearts and minds to focus on the fruit of God's Spirit in the world: the love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control on display in our lives and the lives of others. So here's the good news. I'm not asking you to never watch Netflix again, or delete all your social media accounts, or stop hanging out with friends so you can be completely focused on nothing but God all the time. That's not really the goal. The goal here is to develop the discipline of shifting your attention to look for God in the world every single day, to create space to see the fruit of God's Spirit, to focus on that first and foremost. And that starts by paying attention to what has your attention. Maybe you'll realize that you have more time to connect with God in prayer, or to spend time with your small group, or to dive into a new Bible study. Maybe you'll actually start seeing more of God's Spirit at work in the world around you when you intentionally put more of your focus there. Maybe you'll even discover new things about God when you do. So, what can you do to pay attention to what has your attention? I want to make this as simple as possible. Commit to tracking what has your attention for 1 week. Seriously, for the next week, let's end our days writing down where our attention went most that day. And this isn't a test. There are no wrong answers, so please, I beg you, do not judge yourselves or anyone else for how their list looks. The point of this is to help us start paying attention to what has our attention. If we finish the week and feel great about our focus, then that's awesome. And if we don't, that's okay too. The point is to help you become aware of where your attention is going. And once you know that, it's easier to know where you can make a change. Then, at the end of the week, reflect on where your attention is going and decide where you want it to go moving forward. Maybe you'll discover that you want to build the discipline of a prayer practice or reading the Bible more regularly. Or maybe you'll want to take time to silently think about where you see God at work. Or maybe you'll want to start your day focusing on God by going through a morning devotional. Even showing up to your small group more often could be a great step, since they're focused on seeing God alongside of you. What you decide to do is totally up to you. But my encouragement is simply to pay attention to what has your attention this week. Then you can decide the areas where you want to build the discipline it takes to look for God daily. And sometimes doing simple things like taking breaks, removing distractions that are nearby, changing the way we're sitting, or developing a routine can help us develop the discipline to pay attention to what has our attention. So look, our attention matters. So, what if we were people who really paid attention to what has our attention? Imagine if we were the kind of people who built the discipline needed to set ourselves up to shift our focus as much as is within our control when we needed to. Imagine if you could build the habit of giving your attention to what God is up to in your life, other people, and the world around you. This could be a big step in helping us to see God. So, pay attention to what has your attention. And when you move to small group, think about this question. What is one thing you give a lot of attention to in your daily life?